More of a Copenhagen. Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone could find their seat or a spot around the perimeter. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome here to the Patrick Henry Building. My name is Brad Copenhaver. I'm the Deputy Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry. It's my pleasure to welcome you here for this momentous occasion as Governor Northam ceremonially signs the cannabis legalization law that we passed this year in the General Assembly. This new law is the result of the hard work of many people, advocates, legislators, staff, many of who are here in this room today. But we are really, really appreciative of the bold leadership of Governor Ralph Northam, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Governor Northam today. So without further ado, the 73rd Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Ralph Northam.
Well, thank you. Wow. Thank you all. Please be seated. Good afternoon to everybody. And Brad, thanks so much for your kind words and really all of the hard work that you've done. There have been so many people involved in this process, and it's impossible to recognize everybody. But Brad certainly did a lot of work. I see our Secretary of Agriculture with us, Bettina Ring. Thank you so much, Bettina, for all of your work. And as you know, I know the legislators know our policy team well. There's been a lot of interaction, but Courtney and Missy, Megan, Rita, Jess, Connor, Carter, and I probably missed some, but thanks to all of you. And to all of you that are here today, thank you so much. As you all know, we are here today to celebrate, a milestone for Virginia. We are the first state in the South to move forward with legalizing marijuana. Credit goes to many people, as I've said, and our advocacy groups for this legislation. I want to take this opportunity to especially thank our legislators and our Lieutenant Governor and our Attorney General. This is yet another example of Democrats, yes, Democrats, listening to Virginians and taking action on the will of the people, from expanding health care to over 500,000 people to common sense gun legislation, criminal justice and police reform, ending the death penalty in Virginia, fairer voting laws, moving forward clean energy, giving our teachers and state employees a much-deserved raise, and now legalizing the recreational use of marijuana in Virginia. On these and many other initiatives, Democrats have delivered, and on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia, I say thanks to all of you. So, as of July 1st, 2021, who's counting, but 71 days from now, Virginia will no longer police adults for possessing small amounts of marijuana. What this really means is that people will no longer be arrested or face penalties for simple possession that follow them and affect their lives. We know that marijuana laws in Virginia and throughout this country have been disproportionately enforced against communities of color and low-income Virginians. Last year, a JLARC report showed that Black Virginians are more than 3 times, let me repeat that, more than 3 times as likely to be arrested for simple possession of marijuana. An arrest for simple possession can literally follow a person for a very long time. It can impact their ability to get jobs or get into school. And unfortunately, arrest can sometimes escalate into something much more dangerous, as we are all aware of lately. Last July, we decriminalized possession so that people would no longer face arrest for having small amounts of marijuana. But interestingly, data from the court system since then shows us that our marijuana possession laws continue to be disproportionately enforced. That's why it is so important, it was important to me, that we go ahead and legalize simple possession now. This is the latest step we are taking toward building a more equitable and just Virginia and reforming our criminal justice system to make it more fair. As we build a more equitable Virginia, it's also important that we consider economic equity. Legalizing marijuana creates opportunities in the commercial market throughout the Commonwealth. In fact, JLARC estimates that this industry will create over 11,000 jobs in sectors ranging from farming to the building trades to professional services. And there are considerable opportunities for Virginians, especially those from over-policed and economically distressed communities, to become business owners in this industry, building generational wealth. We must also be mindful to make sure those opportunities are open and welcoming to communities that have been disproportionately impacted by marijuana laws. This legislation creates a multi-year plan to promote diverse ownership in the industry. That includes a business equity team to do outreach and provide technical assistance, creating a framework for social equity loans, and giving preference to social equity qualified businesses. We won't be the last state to do this. In fact, just this week, I joined 20 other governors in signing a letter to congressional leaders, urging them to pass legislation allowing states that have legalized marijuana to operate under the national banking system. Any commercial business needs to be able to use our banking system, and now more than half the states in the country have some form of legal marijuana. Forcing those businesses to keep operating on a cash basis creates a safety risk for workers, customers, and the public. I am proud that Virginia took the time to study and learn from other states, and that from the beginning, we chose to make social equity a central theme of legalization. That focus would not have happened without the leadership of our legislators here today. I especially, and you will hear from these legislators, want to thank our President Pro Tem, Louise Lucas, Senator Adam Ebbin, and Delegate Charnel Herring for carrying this legislation. We would not have come this far without the work of countless advocates. Thank you for your tireless advocacy and your dedication. And also want to thank our Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax, who cast the deciding vote to pass this legislation. Without his vote, we would not be moving forward with legalization this July. So thank you, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. This is just the beginning, as you all know, of the process. We have our work cut out for us as we create the new Cannabis Control Authority, reenact parts of the legislation, and establish this regulated industry. I am confident that given the leadership of our legislators and advocates, the strong framework passed in this legislation and our collective commitment to social equity, Virginia will create a legal market for marijuana the right way. Now, I want to turn the podium over to President Pro Tem Senator Louise Lucas, who will be followed by my speaking order. So, yes, thank you. Senator Evan, and then Leader Herring, then Speaker Fillicorn, and then Jen Michelle Padini, and we'll be closed out by Elijah Hackett. So without further ado, please welcome to the podium our President Pro Tem, Louise Lucas. Louise, thank you.
Thank you, Governor. My remarks will be brief because everything that I had in my remarks he's already said. But I want to thank the Governor for bringing us together for this historic bill signing ceremony. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Governor, because Virginia is now the first in the South to legalize marijuana, and I'm immensely proud to stand with you. These other distinguished speakers and all of these distinguished members of the legislature standing behind me, thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you, all of the advocates, because without you, we wouldn't be here today either. As Chief Co-Patron of Senate Bill 1406, I'm especially pleased that legalization of simple possession of marijuana starts on July 1st, because Black Virginians are more than 3.5 times as likely to be arrested for marijuana, despite using at similar rates as whites. JLOC found that racial disparity was true in localities across the state in every region. The General Assembly acknowledged that injustice last year when we decriminalized simple possession. That was a good first step, and that brings us to where we are today. And as the Governor has already said, effective July 1st, simple possession of up to 1 ounce without intent to distribute will no longer be a civil penalty for those aged 21 and over. There's a straightforward injustice to punishing people for something we have all agreed should be legal, especially when we know that the punishments are given out inequitably. And my final remark is that this bill contains the social equity component that the Governor spoke of, which provide provisions, among other things, to support and resources to persons and communities that have been historically, disproportionately affected by drug enforcement. So with that, Governor, and since you've outlined all the rest of it, I just want to thank you again and everybody else for being here, and thank the advocates, because this has been a long time coming, but we're finally getting there. Thank you.
Thank you.
All tangled up here. Okay. Governor Northam, thank you for your leadership. With your voice and the early voice of Attorney General Mark Herring, Virginia has not only made extraordinary progress, but today we make history. Thank yous are also in order to Lieutenant Governor Fairfax for his historic tie-breaking votes, Agriculture Secretary Bettina Ring and the Governor's Advisory Work Group on Marijuana Legalization, Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Brad Copenhaver, your policy advisor Megan Field, and I'm going to get in trouble here because there's a group of passionate legislators who all contributed to this process, and we're all vital. But I want to single out Senator Favola, because Senator Favola had the foresight to appoint Senate Cannabis Subcommittee Chair Jeremy McPike, who did a phenomenal job of helping shepherd us in the Senate. So thank you, Jeremy. Also, thank yous are in order to Virginia Normal Executive Director Jen Michelle Padini, who you'll hear from, Delegate Charnel Herring, and my co-chief patron, Senator Lucas. Written history tells us that people have been using cannabis since the 3rd millennium BC, and archaeological evidence tells us possibly even earlier. But it is only in our recent history that it's been criminalized. For decades, cannabis was not valued for its healing properties, but instead weaponized to create criminals out of otherwise law-abiding citizens. And the weight of this disproportionately broken system fell on Virginians who are young, impoverished, and people of color. The prohibition failed, and with the stroke of your pen, Governor, it will end on July 1st. What we've learned is that cannabis can be used responsibly, it can be regulated to ensure consumer and public safety, and that the revenue from its legal sale can be reinvested in those communities that have been most egregiously impacted by the failed war on drugs. Under the Governor's leadership, a package of amendments strengthen this bill. We will fund public safety and health campaigns, speed up the legalization timeline, create a nationwide model for worker protections, and simplify the process for sealing marijuana-related criminal records. The passage of this legislation caps off a multi-year partnership with the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws to repair our broken and outdated cannabis policies and begins the deliberate steps toward undoing the harms of prohibition. However, make no mistake, there remains much work to be done. Portions of this bill are subject to reenactment, and I look forward with working with members of the newly established Cannabis Oversight Commission and seeing that we deliver on the promise of a safe, equitable adult use market which builds generational wealth for those in communities most adversely affected by the failed prohibition. Thank you. And I have the honor of introducing my fellow Alexandrian and House sponsor, Delegate Charnel Herring.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I want to thank Governor Northam, Senator Eben, President Pro Tem Lucas, Speaker Philicorn, and the Lieutenant Governor for all their help in making today a reality. This bill, for me, is about racial equity and economic opportunity. Our nonpartisan JLARC study has shown that our marijuana prohibition laws have been disproportionately applied in both arrests and conviction, while the use is not significantly different between white and Black Virginians. The impact of criminalization laws have disproportionately harmed minority and low-income communities as a result. This bill is about restorative justice and helping economically distressed localities in all parts of the Commonwealth, from Northern Virginia to the South Side, from Hampton Roads to Bristol. This legislation also focuses on funding a system where we have heightened ceiling for marijuana convictions, promoting diverse participation in the newly created industry, and reinvestment in communities harmed by the prohibition and families. And what's most important for me is the funding of pre-K that will come from this for children who are going without that program. And it introduces new approaches to possession of controlled substances for children so that we are no longer sending children to the school to prison pipeline, but instead using things like counseling and education. This bill, while a significant step toward addressing the harms created by the failed war on drugs, is only one element, an element of institutionalized racism that has been dismantled by this legislature in the past 2 years. We've accomplished many things, but our work still continues. We must continue our work to ensure restorative justice for those harmed by our laws. And one other thing I would like to say and think is those with prior convictions who had the courage to stand up and speak the truth about the impact not only on their lives, but their ability to feed their children and to house them. That has meant more and it has caused what's happened here today. So I want to thank everybody who testified, and a lot of this testimony was remotely because of the pandemic, but for people to do that, that says a lot. I'm proud of every Virginian who stood up. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Eileen Filler-Corn, Speaker of the Virginia House, and I'm so proud and honored to be with you all today. Thank you, Governor Northam, for inviting me to join you. And thank you for your tremendous leadership on this issue. I would also like to take a moment to thank Majority Leader Herring, our colleagues in the House, Senator Eben, our partners in the Senate, and countless activists across the Commonwealth of Virginia who made this moment possible, those that are here and those that are watching us. Today, the governor will sign legislation to legalize marijuana, and by doing so, he will make our justice system fairer for every single Virginian. It's no secret that our country is in the midst of an awakening to different realities faced by Americans of color, especially their differing experiences with law enforcement and our justice system. This has also been a moment where many of us had had to take the time to look in the mirror. A moment to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what can we do? What can we do to confront and end systemic racism in this country. The prohibition of cannabis has been long unequally enforced and used to over-police our brown and black communities. As we all worked hard and diligently toward the passage of the final version of this bill, I said time and time again that the time for us to act is now. We could not delay taking this step and putting it off. The time to act was now. And today, every Virginian can be proud that we together have met that moment. There is still work ahead and much to be done, but by signing this bill into law, we can celebrate a large and clear and historic step forward. Now, I would like to take a moment to introduce Jan Michelle Padini, Development Director of Normal. She and Normal have been on the front lines of this fight, and no doubt, without them, we would not be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am Jen Michelle Padini, the Development Director for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or NORML, and I also have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of our state chapter, Virginia NORML. Over the past 2 months, I have answered more times than I can count. How did Virginia just legalize cannabis? And who knew that was going to happen? Me, I knew. And so did these people. And as for the how, that's thanks to the unwavering commitment of these fine people before you today. Senator Eben and Leader Herring, Senator Lucas and Speaker Fillercorn, Attorney General Herring, Lieutenant Governor Fairfax, and of course, Governor Northam. And Virginians who have been so very clear in their support for this effort. Today and together, we celebrate an extraordinary victory for cannabis justice in the Commonwealth. I've also mentioned countless times how Virginia is the single most prepared state to ever undertake a legalization effort. The study and the work group both prioritized legalization that ensures equity, consumer safety, and restorative justice. This is why the legislation succeeded and on its first attempt. Still, we do have so much more work ahead, and NORML remains committed to continuing our efforts on behalf of Virginians with the legislature, with the administration, with the new Virginia Cannabis Control Authority, and to make sure that we do get this right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the last person who has the privilege to speak before the governor signs this historic piece of legislation. Thank you, Governor Northam, the patrons of the bill, my colleague, Deputy Brad Copenhaver, and to all of the stakeholders who collaborated to make this a reality and to ensure that equity remained at the forefront. My name is Alacia Black Hackett, and I have the pleasure of serving as the lead Deputy Diversity Officer for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Governor Northam made it very clear from the onset of the development of this bill that it should begin and end with equity. With that in mind, the Governor's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, led by Dr. Janice Underwood, collaborated with our entire legislative team and many with us here today to ensure that we got this right. In doing so, this law establishes social equity as a pillar and major priority. Specifically, as mentioned before, it focuses on health equity, economic equity, and equity in criminal justice. I want to especially highlight that it was critical for there to be equitable access to business licensing, especially for those who have been in the past criminalized and disenfranchised by marijuana laws. Secondly, the Social Equity Reinvestment Fund, an important structure in this legislation, provides resources that will elevate and uplift those persons, neighborhoods, communities, and families most negatively impacted by the disparate enforcement of marijuana laws. This bill makes Virginia a national leader as we lean into many uncomfortable truths about the legalization of marijuana and the true meaning of being many Virginias, but one Commonwealth. Together, we are one Virginia strong. Thank you so much.
So this first bill is House Bill 2312. Our patron is Delegate Charnel Herring. Would they like me to read this?
Well done, Governor. Only because I'm the oldest. And the cutest.
Senate Bill 1406, our patrons, Senator Louise Lucas and Adam Evans. That concludes our ceremony, and thanks again to all of you for being here. Thanks to all of the advocates. Thanks to our legislators, our Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor. Like I said earlier, who's counting? But 71 days. So,